Hi everybody, Peggy here. Today I am making a custom size tarot wrap / reading cloth. It's going to be a wrap with a string, with a cord, with a ribbon. So I am going to show you how to do that. They're actually pretty easy to make. You can turn any reading cloth that you have can be used to wrap up your deck. I'm just going to show you how to do a custom size so you can customize it to the size of your deck. And we're just going to get started. I picked a small deck. I picked the Tarot of Trees. I happened to notice that it was laying on my wife's reading table without a bag, so I thought it was a good idea to start with that. And I'll be honest, I also knew that I had a fabric that was a good match for the deck. It's like I saw this and it's like, oh, I still have this tree fabric. This will be great. I'll do a project for you guys today. So this is really simple. Okay. No, it is really simple. It is really simple. There are two ways that you can do this. You can get out your pen and paper. Do I have a pen and paper? Do I have a paper? Yeah, this is so simple that I'm not even ready. Okay. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So you can do this one of two ways. You can just simply go, oh, I want this, I want that, and then just track as you go, mark it out. If you are, say you use almost entirely Llewellyn decks that almost always come in the exact same size, then you may want to sit down with a pen and paper so that you have notes, so that if you ever want to make more than one, like some people collect decks. I know that some of you watching collect decks. So if you are somebody who collects decks, you may want to do the pen and paper method. There's not much of a method to it. You may want to write things down as you go, write things down first. You may want to do it in any configuration that you want, because certain publishers put their decks out almost exclusively in the same size. So again, if you have if you collect a lot of Llewellyn decks and you want to make one for, I think this is an indie deck. I don't think this is Llewellyn. Yeah. Telluri Press. This is not a Llewellyn deck. My wife, she can just look at decks and go, oh, that's Llewellyn, that's La Scarabeo, that's whatever. She can do that in a heartbeat. I can't do that. I have to double check. Anyway, so if you are collecting a lot of Llewellyn, La Scarabeo, what other, I'm already lost. Help me below. Tell me some publishers that have lots of decks out that, Limina 11, they have a bunch of decks out. Tell me some other publishers where they generally tend to put their decks out in the same size. But that's just for future knowledge. Anyway, so the first thing you want to do, and again, I'm going to do it right on the fabric, but you can write this down as you go. What I like to do is I like to make a little drawing and then write my stuff down here, because that way I can be, whatever instructions that if you choose to do written instructions, you can, as long as you understand what you're saying, your own writing, your own style. The rules are, you make the rules on how you're going to do this. Anyway, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure your deck. And again, you can just measure your deck by going, this is fine, okay? So that's fine. What I do, I'm going to make it complicated right from the start. And like I said, this is because this is actually a simple project. Oh, she's edged this deck. This is actually a simple project. Just keep in mind it's a simple project, but like anything, explaining it is where the time is taken. Once you watch this through and get an idea of what I'm talking about, you're going to find that the project, once you've selected and prepped your fabric, you'll find that the project itself isn't that hard. And if you're working with a smaller deck and you're sewing by needle and thread, this is probably a much easier project than trying to do a giant cloth. So what I like to do is I like to ask myself, what kind of reading would I do? I tend to go past, present, future. What is mitigating the past? What is mitigating the future? And if I'm still not sure what's going on, I'll draw an extra card. So that's a basic reading layout for me. So with this deck, this is the customizing piece. This is why we're talking about customizing, because if I make a deck that only wraps around the deck, but if I make a wrap strictly based on the size of the deck, I may end up when I unwrap it having a cloth that's not big enough for what I need. The most popular spread seems to be 3 cards, so for most people it's not going to be an issue. The deck is this big, but if you happen to be somebody who likes, like, what if you do a spread where you're going over, under, like, look at this piece that I pre-cut the piece because I already knew in advance what I was going to be looking for. This is where you're going to want to write stuff down, because if you're like, I want to, if I can speak, if you are going to be going to this, it's like, if you're going to go, I want this, so I'm going to go to the store and buy my fabric. You need to know how big of a piece of fabric you need. I'm just showing you this. Like I said, I already cheated and got this prepped in advance. I already cheated and got it started. But what is your favorite spread? What do you think you're going to be using this deck for? It's okay if it's just a 3 card. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to force yourself to do something bigger. But if you are a person that does bigger spreads, you are going to want to know in advance how much space that you're going to need for this particular deck. So you're going to want to lay down your deck, and you're going to want to measure it, and you're going to want to go, well, okay, this is 13 inches, okay? If I'm making a wrap or a cloth, let's assume that this is my favorite spread. I will do this spread constantly. So it is 13 inches by 10 inches. Well, obviously things can spread out, so you need to give yourself about an inch on either side. So this is now 15 inches. The reading is 13 inches. I need an inch all the way around minimum, because I'm also going to have my seam allowances all the way around when I sew. And I've mentioned those before. Like when you sew 2 pieces of fabric together, you have to give some space at the end. Generally speaking, 1/4 of an inch. And depending how you sew, if you do a 1-inch seam allowance, then you need about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, and 1 inch on each side for your seam allowances. So keep that in mind. So this is your first step. This is your first step in measuring this stuff out. And again, if this was a Llewellyn deck, I would be writing this down in case my lovely, lovely wife comes to me and says, I like this, make me more. If you're collecting Llewellyn decks, then you want to know this. You want to know what is the maximum size, what is the not as the maximum, what is the minimum size that you need this to be? So, like I said, if you're just doing 3 card readings, then it doesn't matter. If you do 3 card readings exclusively, and very rarely, if ever, pull out a second deck, then this entire step you can skip. Where this matters, where this is important, and again, this is an easy project. What we're learning today is how to customize it. So your job right this minute, before you even start looking at fabric, is to ask yourself, what is your favorite reading? And if so, when you lay out your reading when you lay out your reading with this particular deck, how much space do you actually need? This fabric really shouldn't be here, because right now we're just measuring. Let's keep in mind that decks come in all sizes. So when you're customizing, obviously, if I'm making a deck this big, it's going to be a completely different size than a deck this big and a deck this big. This is a novelty deck from US Games, the Giant Rider Waite Tarot deck. Now, I'm not making a bag or anything for this. This is a novelty. I really don't think I'll use it. Maybe Lisa, I think, wants to borrow it for doing some videos, because it's easier to hold up for the camera. But I bought this to make this look bigger, to make this look smaller. I'm really into the small decks. So anyway, this is the Universal Weight US Games. This one here, if you want to store your deck in the tin or out of the tin, and that matters too, whether or not you're storing. Look, that deck is in a tin and it's this big, but the deck itself with its little book is this big. But when you lay all these spreads out, they come out at different sizes. The last thing you want to do is put your time, energy, and money, fabric isn't cheap, into customizing. But like, look at this one. This is the exact same spread that I said was 13 plus an inch on either side, so 15 inches. And how did I have that? I had that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, one. This is not a spread that I use. I'm just inventing an example. But now this one here is 9 inches, 4 inches smaller. So yeah, if you want to make it bigger, that's obviously fine. The last thing you want to do is end up with a cloth that is too small for the spread that you want to be using. What you can also do, since this is a narrow spread, this might matter, and this is information for you to have. Just because the spread cloth goes this way doesn't mean you can't fold it up that way, right? I've got this with a fabric that has, this is a one-directional fabric. It only looks good from this direction. If I have a fabric issue and don't think I have enough fabric, then when I'm ready to put the deck away, I can fold it this way. So you can reorganize that way. Obviously, just keep that in mind. Anyway, this is a much smaller spread. It requires a much smaller cloth. You can always go big. Absolutely, you can always go bigger. Always, always, always. You can always go bigger, but once it's too small, you're screwed. That's the punchline. So we're gonna put these aside. That is my show and tell for the day. So we figured out that if you are doing an extensive spread, that you need to lay your cards out in a comfortable way. Is there a card under there? Did a card slip under there? No. You need to lay out your spread in a comfortable way. And that will tell you right there the minimum dimensions that you need for your deck. I mean, that will tell you that you have to go way bigger. That makes your job easier, honestly. If I have a spread that's going to take up all of this and go to here, then I'm already done and I can just start putting this together. And again, one of the main purposes of this video is to help you guys with the information you need for custom sizing. I know a lot of people would do custom sizing if they could. And I will tell you right now, if you are contacting somebody, currently I'm not taking custom orders because my lovely, lovely helper Rose is off recovering from a surgery. But if you are contacting somebody regarding a custom order, if you say, oh, I need a, what's going on? What's that card on? If you say, I need a cloth that's big enough for this, and you don't have a lot of extra information, you may not get what you want. So yeah, if you come to me and you say, I would like a cloth that is for the tarot of trees, then I will measure by the deck. I will say, oh, okay, well, it needs to be this big. Is that okay? Here's the thing, right? But if you, like I said, I'm gonna overstate it because I can't state it enough. The size that you need for the deck isn't necessarily the size you need for the spreads that you want to use. Don't forget, this is for tarot. Like, and again, I will admit I am overstating the case because I already know that one of the most popular spreads is just a simple 3-card reading. But if you want to do more than that, you need to be sure that what you're asking for or creating for yourself is gonna fit your maximum size requirement, not your minimum. Okay, so that's the first piece. And again, if you are communicating with somebody because you are asking them to do it for you, like when Lisa comes to me and says, hey honey, can you make me a thing, especially if she's asking for a reading cloth, my first question to her is, what kind of spread are you using it for? She likes to do Celtic cross. I don't know if you guys know I know, okay, most of you guys know what a Celtic cross is. Let's just get this out and do this again. So a Celtic cross is, what's your issue? What's crossing the issue? There's a card that goes here, 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 and here. Lisa can tell you, I still have to look every single time. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that go down the side. And again, I'm already off at the bottom. If I were creating this for Lisa, for her to be able to comfortably do a Celtic cross, you can, by the way, if spacing is an issue, sometimes fabric gets expensive. You can also, I see people turn their cards like this for the Celtic cross. But yeah, if you're doing a Celtic cross, this is probably not quite big enough. So again, your first measurement is to be sure that the intended reading that you want to use this cloth for, and again, this is going to wrap around and store your deck, but then you're going to unwrap it and do your reading right on the cloth. This is a combo. This is a twofer. So when you're doing that, if you're just simply wrapping your deck and you have a different cloth that you're going to lay out to do your readings on, the rules change again. So anyway, I've spent way too much time talking about this, so let's just get to work. Let's just get to work. So now you know your measurements, okay? You know your measurements, and with that in mind, assuming that you now, if you know that the spread that you require is way bigger than the amount of fabric you need to wrap your thing, then you're done, and you are going to cut your fabric. You are not going to do anything else. You are going to cut your fabric according to the needs that you measured when you measured the space that you need for the reading. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, comment below. Don't forget, I mean, I'm new. I hang around in the evenings and check out comments. I love to chat with people. So if you're not quite sure what I mean, go ahead and leave a comment. I'll be happy to do my best to expand on this and give you more information. But again, if you are just simply doing, so your maximum, so now you've sorted out what your maximum, now you've sorted out so if you do very, very large readings, then you now know what your minimum size is. Your minimum size is the amount of space that you need for your reading with a minimum of 1 full inch all the way around. Okay? If that's how things worked out for you, and this is, so you need space to take your cloth, and it needs to wrap up this way and down this way. It doesn't have to, this is where we're going to explain things again. It doesn't have to wrap up completely. It can go to about 3/4 and then go to about 3/4 again and then wrap around. That's what's going to happen. That's how you're going to wrap this up. And I'm not sure how to explain it better without having one right with me right now. I do have one. Hang on. I'll be right back again. Remember what I said in my PSA video about prep? I did not prep well for this. Okay. This is my little Norman set. Now, for this one, I already know that this Julie Peekaboo Rose made one for me and one for Lisa, so they're really cool. That's the back, and then these are the fronts. And you can even see, like, there I am right there in front of the house. There I am on the key. There I am on the side. I forget which one that's called. That's the mountain. So I already know that when I'm doing a Lenormand reading, that I'm just going to lay them out on whatever table is handy, or I'll grab a bigger cloth because I make them. I have a ton in the back, right? So I did that. So this goes up about 3/4 of the way. This goes down about 3/4 of the way. Now, I did this one a little bit differently. So that folds there, and then that. I wanted to mess around with elastics. This was just a sample project that I did, and that's done. This is what we're making today. What we're focusing on today is how to customize these so that, like, could you imagine me trying to fold this guy up in here, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but I don't need all that. So I don't need all that. I'm not gonna use it that way. Anyway, another moment of not being prepared. So you've calculated what your maximum reading is. If your maximum reading is, put that on its end, put that down there, put that down there, put that down there, and put that back on its end. That's probably approximately. And of course, you can measure and go, you can measure it and then just lay out your ruler, obviously. But you're gonna want your fabric to come to about the 3/4 mark. Well, it's all the way. This is slightly, I can leave it like this and it's fine. I can go a little smaller and that's fine. I can go a little narrower and that's fine. Because I'm going to figure out what I want. I'm going to figure out what I want this to do. This has to wrap all the way around at least once. At least one full time around. And I know I want to do at least a 3-card reading. Because you're not just going to, you want the size of the deck. Okay, here's how you're going to imagine this. Let's get the camera. Let's do this with the camera. How you're going to imagine this is you have your deck here. Okay, so there's your fabric. There's your deck there. So you want this to go up and over, but you have a card there and a card there. I'm not explaining this well because I'm not a math teacher. So you want a fabric that when you fold this up, this is going to be here, this is going to be here, but you need to make sure that you have at least that much width if you're doing a 3-card reading. It needs to be wide enough for your project. So for this, I only need, how much do I need? I need to go around once. I need 1 full round. So I need 2.5 inches plus 1 inch times 2. That's all the way around the deck. 2.5, 2.5, 1 inch, 1 inch. So that's 5, 6, 7 inches. I need 7 inches, but, let's open this back up again. I should have just left this open. I'm trying not to muck with my wife's cards too much. So this needs to be 7 inches. Well, to do a simple 3-card spread, I need 9 inches plus 1 inch on each side. I need 11 inches. You cannot just do exactly the thing. Okay. So I'm done laying out all the problems. Now let's just get into the math. Let's get into all the math. So I need this to be at least 9 inches long. I need this to be at least 9 inches long, and I know that I only need this to be 7 inches to go. I need a 7-inch piece of fabric to go all the way around the deck. I know that in order to lay out my 3 cards, I need this to be, so my minimum is covered. My minimum is covered. I've already double checked the height that I want, the width that I want. So now I'm back to doing this again. I was like, okay, 1, 2, 3. If I want to space it out and give myself some space. Oh, she's going to kill me. Her things are upside down. Okay, so that's 9 inches. Now I want to spread this out to give an inch on this side and an inch on this side. That's 11 inches. Okay. I'm going to write down 11 inches. 11 inches wide. Of course, if you're working in centimeters, don't forget that the average seam allowance in centimeters, I believe, is a centimeter. So you'll want to give yourself 3.5 centimeters, I believe it is. There it is. I have a ruler that has metric. So you're going to want to give yourself 1 inch equals 2.5. You're going to want to give yourself at least 2.5 centimeters. So approximately 2.5 centimeters to an inch if you're working in metric so that you can convert it. I also need this to fold. I'm just going to use just the box. I also need this to fold all the way around this way. So I need it to be 3.5 inches by 1 inch. So 3.5, 1, 2. So I need it to go. This is why I did this. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That goes all the way around. Wait, I said that wrong. I said that wrong. Okay. This is not just if you fold this exactly to here, that is fine depending on how many times you're rolling it that way. So I need this to be at least, I need this to be at minimum. And again, this is assuming that the card reading that you want isn't much smaller. So I need this to be 3.5 inches plus 3.5 inches, which is 7 inches plus 1 inch plus 1 inch, so 2 inches. So I need this to be 7.5 plus 2 is 9.5 plus 2 is 11.5. So I need this to be 11 to 11.5 inch high. That's what I just figured out. I'm only going to do a 3-card reading on this cloth. I don't need to do anything extensive. It does have to be higher so that it can fold properly around the deck itself. If you have it exact to height and you're just rolling it and you have the top and the bottom exposed, your cards are going to fall out. There's nothing you can do to stop that. It's going to be a problem. So you have to make sure that the whole deck is completely encased at least once. Okay. If you are sitting down doing this for yourself, you're going to find that this takes about 2 or 3 minutes. This is not a long process to do this. It's like anything, like riding a bicycle, you just get up and do it. Doing something is often learning by doing is usually far easier than learning by listening to an explanation. I'm trying to explain it. Okay, so I've calculated that as long as my cloth is 11 wide by 11.5 inch high, that it will fit this deck. So let's just do that. But I want it to be square. So if it's 11 inches wide, if it's 11 inches wide by 11.5 inches tall, it's going to be taller than it is wide, and this is a one-directional fabric. I can do that one of two ways. I can still wrap it side to side and not worry about it. It doesn't matter which direction it wraps in, but I like my cloth to be square. So I'm going to expand it to 11.5 by 11.5. So what I'm going to do, now we're almost ready to start. Now we have this to do. Now, because this has a pattern on it, the last thing I want to do, I never cut my cloth. I always mark my cloth. If you mark on the more solid piece, and so I mark my more solid piece, and if for some reason I end up putting this on wonky, then this is going to come out wonky and it's not going to look good. If one of your pieces is specifically directional, then cut, mark, do whatever you're going to do on the directional piece. And I am going to use things are going to start moving quickly now, I hope. If I can find my rulers. Okay. There it is. Oh my gosh, I buried a ruler under a bunch of junk. Okay, so I want 11.5. This happens to be a 12-inch ruler. So that makes life pretty good. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make life easy on myself. And this is where you're customizing. So after a long, great deal of explanation, I finally got to the point where, yeah, I'm just going to do a 3-card spread. I need the cloth to fold over so that I can roll it up. And I've determined that my minimum is this. Let's say that I was doing this. Well, actually, I could actually put a taro and a tin in this. U.S. Games, universal weight, taro in a tin. Taro in a tin is almost always this size. I think even across companies, they're this size. So, like I said, that's why you want to mark things down. Anyway, I know that I'm going in circles with explaining here, guys, but I hope some of this is making sense. I hope it's helping in some way. Now, I prefer to mark my fabric, sew it, and then trim it. That's just me. It's just the way I do things. And I find that I get much straighter, cleaner, easier lines if I do it. So, yeah, so again, my ruler happens to be 12 by 12. I know I want it to be 11.5 by 11.5. I'm going to take the extra ½ inch. I'm going to put that on my thing. And don't forget, the more, you can be as picky as you want. More, when it comes to stuff that you have to cut, more is better. You can always finish it later and trim it and do something else. So when you are using these kinds of fancy rulers, it's really tempting. It's really tempting to mark your 6-inch line and just go, okay. I always turn my ruler and do them 1/4 at a time. I line up the entire bottom edge with the line I just made. Then I line up the entire top. I don't have to pay a lot of attention today because this is a 12-inch ruler. I've decided on a 12-inch by 12-inch. I can customize it by making it a little smaller. I can customize it by making it a little bigger. But now I've found a base measurement for decks that are in this size range. Isn't that nifty? So I already knew, let's be honest, I already knew up front approximately what size I was going to end up with because I do this for a living. So if you are working in the Llewellyn size or smaller, you can quite often get away with a 12-inch by 12-inch. But if you are wanting to customize, needing to customize, like, I mean, if you're making a wrap for this deck, this won't work. This will hold 2 cards. This will hold 2 cards. You won't be able to wrap it properly. Well, you might. Let's see. Okay. You'll get up and over there. You'll get up and over there. You will, yeah, you can wrap it. This will go in a 12 by 12. but you won't be able to do a reading with it. I cannot, okay, so I don't know if you guys can see this. I hope you can. But if I were to try and lay this out, one card, little space, another card, little space, another card, the fabric ended here. I wouldn't be, I mean, but if you just do a 2-card reading, this is fine. You will find that once you sort out base measurements, this is a base measurement. This is going to suit what I want. It does not have to, I can make this shorter by about, I can make it shorter because this is my edge. I can make it shorter because this really only has to go up about halfway. It has to overlap, but it doesn't have to overlap insanely. So I can make this shorter if I want to. I would just prefer to have the extra padding. The extra layer of fabric equals extra padding. I would rather have the extra padding. Okay, so I've got this down. I'm going to cut off the extra so it's not a pain in the butt when it's in the machine. My thing is there. So I'm cutting that off. I now have a 12-inch by 12-inch marked. That's where I've decided to put my sew line. Don't forget, if you've decided, so I can go inside and make it smaller. I can go outside and make it bigger. I do like my cloths to be a little bigger. I can make this a little shorter. Now that you've got this sorted out, now you know what size of fabric you need at the store. Fat quarters, by the way, most fabric stores do sell fat quarters, and they are perfect for reading cloths and for wraps, because a full yard of fabric can cost a lot of money. And if you're using a bigger deck or a bigger spread or something like that, where you have to have a bigger wrap and have to buy a full yard, that can, well, some stores only sell by the yard. Some stores sell as little as 9 inches, a quarter yard. Most stores will let you have a half yard. But anyway, fat quarters are a little bit more expensive, but if you only need one versus a full yard of fabric is enough to make 4 fat quarters. If you are working on a project where you only need 1 fat quarter, the other 3 are a waste. So instead of spending $20 or more for a full yard, pay the 5 or 6 and get a fat quarter. You will ultimately save money if you're not using it for other projects. Anyway, so, and again, thanks for hanging out and listening to this drivel. I mean, I think I'm doing a good job of explaining it, but then when you're sitting here watching this and it's like you're already like 25 minutes into a video and I haven't sewn anything yet and you're going, oh my God, this is going to take so long. It's not. I would have, on my own, I would have just taken this and went, okay, that's enough. Okay, that's enough. And just, I would have eyeballed it because I know that I mostly only do 3-card readings. If you mostly only do 3-card readings, then you just need to go 1, 2, 3, and enough to wrap your deck once fully with a little bit of leftover. And then you just measure what you ended up with. It's really simple. The biggest part of sorting this out is if you are doing more extensive readings. But if you are doing a simple 3-card reading, you need 1, 2, 3, and you need to be able to wrap your deck fully. So start at that, go like that, go like that, go like that. That's a complete cycle. You need to be able to wrap your deck fully at least once. So technically I've got 2 inches off the bottom that I don't really need. But I like my decks to be, I like my cloths to be square. So I'm adding the extra. And now I don't have something that's too big, and I'm not in danger of having something that's too small. And the bonus if you do it this way is that if something comes up and you decide to pull a few extra cards, you do have some space for them now. But yeah, this is only complicated if you do large spreads, really. And then if you do a spread that needs more, okay, figure out what your minimum is. This is the minimum amount of space I need to be able to properly store the deck itself. And as long as your preferred readings fit inside that space, you're done and you're moving on. Everything else is just for the benefit of people who are doing larger, more involved readings. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then square it off, don't square it off, depending on what your preferences are, you're done. If you're doing a Celtic cross, then you need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, cross. You need to figure out where all your cards are going to go. And if that is bigger than your base minimum size requirement for the deck itself, then you need to make a bigger cloth. I should have said that first. I really should have said that first, but thanks for bearing with me, guys. Writing it down, and again, I will list the name of the type of deck it is. So if it's Llewellyn, I will mark down Llewellyn. Then I will mark down the base size for 3 cards. And so this one I decided on a 12 by 12. It's not Llewellyn, but let's assume that this is Llewellyn, okay? So I would mark down that I need a 12 by 12 if your preferred reading is 3 cards. If your preferred reading is 5, it'll still work because I just went 1, 2, 3. If your preferred reading is a Celtic cross, and that way, this is kind of what I do when I'm making stuff for Lisa, especially when it's reading cloths and stuff. It's like, she's got certain decks she will only do 3 cards. She's got certain decks that she only pulls 1 card and very rarely does a bigger reading. So that is what it is. So I'm just going to cut off this extra. When you are sewing, I've got my line is way over here. I can be a little sloppy over there, so that's why I went as I was going. When you've got extra fabric like that on one side of a project, it's always a good idea to trim it off before you sew, because sometimes it can just bunch up. It can actually slip under and fold under. It can be annoying, is all I'm getting at. Okay, so now that I've overdone this piece, the rest of it's going to be pretty quick. Come with me to the machine. We're going to top. Actually, I'll just yeah, you guys can come with me. You guys come with me to the machine. Okay, so this is a directional fabric. This is something else I'm going to explain as I go. Today is the day of explanations, and the project itself only takes a few minutes. This is a day of explanations. This is a one-directional fabric. If you are making a cloth, if you've seen my first video, you already know that you're going to go all the way around, and you're going to leave an opening, and you're going to flip it. Well, the spot where you flip it can be somewhat visible. So the last thing you want, when you are looking at a piece of fabric, when you are looking at a reading cloth, you're going from here, your eyes are here. This is in line with the first thing you see. So if you make a bit of a flaw, it can happen. It can happen because you're flipping a spot that's open even when you iron it. Sometimes when you iron them, instead of being like this, they're just off the tiniest bit. So maybe this could have like a little blue streak on the bottom. It's not a big deal. You're not ruining anything when that happens, but it's much more pleasant if it's not the first thing you notice. So when you have a directional fabric, what you want to do is your eyes will follow 2 paths. Your eyes will follow exactly 2 paths. Do I have any? The eyes will follow 2 paths. Okay. I don't know if you can tell that that's a dragon. There's a dragon on that notebook, and the dragon is looking that way. When you are looking at a reading cloth, your eyes follow 2 paths. You're coming in from the bottom, so you'll notice flaws along the bottom. You will also, it's an automatic thing, and I don't think we do it. I don't know how badly we do it, but if there is a figure, or in this case, a dragon, the dragon is looking this way, so you do not want your opening to be here, and you do not want your opening to be in line with whatever your thing is pointing at or looking at. Sounds weird, but it's the truth. It's the God's honest truth that if you have a fabric and something is looking in a particular direction, that your eyes will somewhat follow that direction. So I don't have to worry about the direction up here, but I would put my opening in the upper 2/3 on this side or this side. And if there's something that's facing in a particular direction, I would put it away from the direction he's facing. So if this had a dragon facing in the middle of it, I would be putting my thing here. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, for this, I'm just going to put it up here. So I'm just going to start it up here so that it's up out of the very first line of sight. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because when you're reading tarot, you quite often stop to contemplate your cards and your eyes kind of wander. So because your eyes are wandering, because you're contemplating, you are often more likely to notice tiny flaws. It's not because I'm not accusing anybody of being picky or anything like that. I'm just pointing out a fact of life that I've noticed because I've been doing this for a while now. Anyway, we're going to go over to the machine and we're going to base this up. and then we will move on, and I have a couple of more quick things to explain, and then life gets easy, this gets done. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I've spent most of this video just talking to you guys. I double checked my measurements according to what I needed. I made it, I got a ruler and went, oh, well, that means it's this big. I used a ruler to cross-reference. I upsized what I was doing because I like things to be square, and I'm done. The actual working part so far has been select my fabric, double check my readings, double check what kind of a reading I was doing, make sure that the deck dimensions match the dimensions of the reading that I'm going to do, and that didn't take long. The actual process didn't take long. Explaining it to death is what's killing me here. So let's go over the machine and we will move along. And we're back. Okay, so actually I said I was going to do it on the left-hand side. I'm doing it on the right because it would just happen to be already lined up. So when you are flipping a fabric, and this is for the benefit of people who don't sew, okay, this is called a basting stitch for starters. If you are sewing by hand, this stitch, the stitch that I'm putting in right now, only exists so that when I turn my fabric inside out, that everything turns smoothly. So you can just put a stitch in every half inch. You can do it really, really loosely. And if you're sewing by hand, needle and thread, having this line pre-marked is going to make life a lot easier for you. And don't forget, I'm not pinning because it's such a small one that I'm doing, but for the most part, you really should especially if you have less experience, you really should throw a few pins in. So I'm not going to bother backstitching because I don't need to. I'm just flipping this over. And if anything, they always say to backstitch when you're basting, but I always find that when I flip my stuff through, if something shifts or changes and I need to cut a stitch to get at things, it's always easier if I haven't backstitched. So go down, go down. I get lucky on not having to pin as much or as often. I just got distracted and put in an extra stitch. I get lucky on not having to pin until it gets much bigger because I have a knee lift over here, so I can hold everything. But what I will also point out, if you hold this first, get one finger right down to where your corner is going to be, and make sure everything's still lined up and that nothing has shifted. The other one is just guiding. I'm not pulling, I'm just making sure nothing shifts. And I'm just going to go. What's going on? Oh, okay. Down to the corner, down to the corner, down to the corner, down to the corner. Turn my corner. Sometimes I find that when you're doing this, you don't always end up exactly on a corner, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why that is. I just don't know why I have such bad luck with it some days. If you don't quite get into your corner, don't be afraid to lift your needle. Give a tiny adjustment. Tiny. See how? Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but see how this barely came up? Give a tiny adjustment. Tiny, 1/10 of an inch at max. Like, don't go crazy, and then just keep going. Follow your line, try and make that needle hit right in there. Slow down if you need to, obviously. So we've done 30 minutes of talking to show you how to do a couple of minutes of prepping for sizing. Now I'm doing this. Maybe I'll do another one. You know what? I've done a few of those where I just where I just do the things. I've done a couple of those just silent sew-alongs, and I kind of like them. They were fun. So maybe what I'll do is when this is done, I'll do another one so you guys can see exactly how long it did take me. Maybe I'll do it at regular speed. Yeah, I'll do another one at regular speed where I'm just going to do it. I'll just do it, and then you guys can get a sense of how long it really takes. So however much space you feel you need to turn your fabric inside out, I'm going to put a couple more stitches, and then I'm done. Never leave your things directly on a corner. Always make sure you're going around the corner enough so you can push in a sharp corner. I'm going to go back over here now. Boop. I screwed up, guys. You're going to have to bear with me here. I skipped a step and I did a dumb. Oh, there it is. I skipped a step and I did a dumb, and this is not that big of a deal. I need to be able to tie this off when I'm done. I didn't leave anything here. I left nothing here. Beauty of a basting stitch, by the way, kids, is that it's much further apart than a regular stitch, which means that, just let me do this. I got distracted with the process of the cloth that I forgot that we have to put a tie in here. I forgot that we have to put a tie in here, so let me just pull this out. Different people pull out their stitches in a different way. I like to do it this way just because I don't like, okay, whenever you're taking out stitches, do it in whatever way that you are the most comfortable. Don't follow anybody else's rules. Don't listen to anybody else's rules, because if things don't go well, then you could end up, if your thing slips, you can literally cut your whole fabric. Only ever do it whichever way you feel the most comfortable, the most confident, and the most successful. So I'm just going in between each stitch, making sure that the stitch is raised up above the fabric, and then just pushing forward until it cuts. I like to push away from me, and I'm farsighted, so I like to have it a little bit away from me so that I can see better. Okay, let's just do this now. So I had the dum, and I did the dum. Let's measure this. I need to have space. This is going to be, okay, my 6-inch line. Okay, the same rules apply. I cannot put it down here, so I cannot roll it from the bottom to the top. I can roll it from the top to the bottom, side to side. I had the dum. And I did it the way I normally do it if I'm doing just a plain cloth. That was my bad. So I'm going to just darken this line a little bit. So there is going to be something going in here at the 6-inch mark to be a tie, to tie all this together when it's done. So your line, I'm just going to put that there so I don't go past it. I'm just going to re-sew that. I'll be right back. You're going to hear some noise, but it's only going to take a second. So yeah, never be afraid of your mistakes, guys. It's not that big of a deal. I just had to reposition. I'm fixing something. I didn't break anything, which is the good news. I'm just repositioning where my turn hole is. My turn hole needs to be down here because there's going to be a tie going in, and I just spaced it. So you can carefully cut with scissors. If you mark it, then you have this stuff to cut off after. Don't forget is that most people are doing this first and then sewing it. If you do it this way, you have to trim off the excess. Now, when you put this on, you're almost always going to find that there's a slight whatever. This one's off by 1/2 of 1/16, like it's a tiny bit off. That's normal, just to point that out. Screwing up is normal, having to fix little screw ups is normal. Well, look at that, I've got a perfect 1-inch seam. Now how'd that happen, eh? So trim around at 1/4 of an inch. If you do not trust yourself, you can do here what's called a turn tab. And what that is you leave a little bit of an extra piece of fabric, a little bit extra, so that you've got more fabric to work with, so that when you are top stitching it at the end, it won't shift, it won't have the same chances of shifting. So I am just lining up my 1/4 inch line on the stitches line, which is already darkened by the fact that it's black thread for starters. I'm just using black today because I know how hard it's going to be to see any fabric anyway, and I just thought I'd try for at least a little bit of extra contrast. So you put your so if you're going to mark it, you do that, and then you put your 1/4 inch on afterward. I will tell you right now though, if you are working in sections, so say you're getting this done, it's like, oh, I've only got a few minutes, but I want to get my fabric ready. If you mark it, then cut it, then you don't have to worry about it fraying. So we're going to go back. We're going to trim the corners. Now, different people have their own different personal rules about the corners. I don't like to get super close to that because you'll get a beautiful, beautiful corner every time. If you get close to that, you'll get a beautiful corner every time. But if you get too close to that, then it won't necessarily stay. Over time, it will fray out a little bit at that point and then be visible from the outside. So All I did to fix this was I just double checked my line. I darkened it a bit because it's black on black on black. And so I just put an extra stitch line right there. I mean, I picked out those stitches, and then that line that I had stopped up there, I just went back over it, finished it. This is all basting, so nothing's super tight together, so that's fine. And like I said, this is just a lot of me over explaining, and I think I will do a sew along. I will do a silent sew along so that you guys can see exactly how much time. Maybe I'll do it first. Maybe I'll do the silent sew along first so that you guys are starting off. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, and I'm like, what, 30 minutes in? Lisa's going to edit some of this for me. But I'm reassuring you 30 minutes in on this video, which is like, not necessarily, half of you guys are probably going to already be going, oh my God, this is so involved. And it's not. It's not. Remember math class? Remember any class that you took in school, how first couple of times you encountered an idea, it took a really long time to explain it, and after that you were going, why didn't you just say that? And it's like, this is what's going on here. As soon as you guys have seen this successfully for the first time yourself, as soon as you guys have done one, you'll recognize that a lot of what I'm talking about here. Now, we're going to stop right here. This is still a stage where you can fix your screw-ups. If something happens and I don't like it, I can fold this inside out, redo a line. Say I decide that this is like 2 inches too big. I can turn this inside. That hole is still there. I haven't sewn it up yet. I can still turn this inside out. And because I mark my hole, because I mark things with pen, I can just remark. And if I decide it's too big, obviously I can't make it bigger. But if I decide that it's too big, if I decide, oh, I measured that wrong, and I do think I really want this to be, like I said, I do 3-card readings. So I do that and I go, oh, wow, that's really still too big. I don't know. I could come back in, flip this inside out, take a piece off, sew that, retrim it, and adjust my size. So never be afraid. Never be afraid that you're making something too big. If it's too big, can always be trimmed down, always. So I got to get that out of my, no, I don't. It's not in the way. I'll put it over there. Okay, so next step. So I just checked it. I'm happy with it. I'm just going to grab the box. So when it's time to put this away, that'll go to the top. Actually, this will go over here to one side or the middle. You can, any way you want. There's still plenty of ways to do this. This is going to go like that. I am going to tuck that in a little bit. I'm going to fold that. This is hard to do because the box is empty. I'm going to do that. There's going to be a tie sticking out of here that I will then put on, and it's going to be done. This is gorgeous. This is nice. Okay, so I like it. It's still adjustable at this point because you haven't sealed anything up. So if you are sewing along and you're like, oh, this turned out way too big, you can make it smaller. You can't make it bigger, sorry. But you can still adjust it. Okay, our next step. We have choices to make. So you can use elastic. If you're going to use elastic, then let me just take I'm not using elastic today, but because I already know what I do for the shop, I'll just cut it to the proper shop size so that when I'm done with it, I can still use it. I'm cheap, it's fine. Okay. So you can find your center point and use a piece of elastic. If you are going to hold this together, if you are going to hold this whole works together with a piece of elastic, then you are going to want to take this. You basically want to, your elastic needs to be the same size as one wrap all the way around plus 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, depending on how you want to do things. So you would literally take your piece of elastic, you would do that, you would just go around loosely, don't stretch it, as I stretch it and pull it out of my hand. Once around, go around loosely, come back to the beginning and overlap by enough, so overlap by a little bit, because that's your seam allowance to go inside here. Overlap by a little bit, you're done. Like I said, I've cut this to the wrong size because I'm not using elastic today, I'm doing something else. So you will leave that there, you will grab a pin. This is going to be the exact same thing for everything, so we will, now I'm going to go over and iron this in a second, but You will iron, okay, if you are working with elastic, you will iron this first. Do not iron the elastic. Once the iron touches this, the elastic can go really weird. So you're just going to want to find your center point. I already know this is 12 inches. I know, look, it's 12 inches. So the 6-inch line, and you're going to want to tuck it into the hole. And the reason why you want it to be up to 1/2 inch bigger is because you need a 1/4 inch on each end to be inside the hole, so that when you come around the top stitch, it's going to get caught properly. And then you just put your pin in, and that's it, you're done. Put your pin in, and then you're ready to top stitch. I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm going to iron this right quick. I'll show you the next two things. I'll show you the next one, and then I'll show you the one that we're going to do. Okay, guys, I just went ahead and give this a quick shot of the iron right there. I didn't iron all the way around because I don't need to. I've got I got a little bit of a trick as to how I get around the need to iron for there. Okay, so we can use elastic. This is called twill tape. Now you can use just a regular ribbon. This is called twill tape. Now for twill tape, you are going to need, come on, my silly machine. Here I am thinking I'm just going to reach around and casually grab something, and it's fine. Okay, so twill tape. So this, you want it to be the size of the deck. It's an elastic. You don't need any extra stuff. So the size of the deck plus 1/4 to 1/2 inch. If it's a little tiny bit small, it'll just hold your deck a little bit more snugly. So there's nothing wrong with it being a tiny bit small. That one's fine. Now this is called, this you can just go to the store and buy this. They're about, up here in Canada, it's about $2.50 for a roll of this, and a roll of this is probably like 5 yards, so 4.5 meters, about right. So for this is really easy. You can do whatever you want. You don't even have to cut this just yet. So what you're going to do. Now, the other way that you could have done this was to sew it in as you go along. I don't like sewing it in on the basting because it can shift. So you just find your 6-inch line, line this up, pin it, and then you're ready for your top stitching. And again, whenever I am making one of these, I don't make these very often because it's really hard to estimate what sizes people need for these. So I don't really make these very often. I'm more likely just to make a big reading cloth, and then people will take a reading cloth, wrap their deck in it, and then just wrap it in ribbon themselves. So you can use ribbon, twill tape, anything like that, and that's fine. Sorry, I'm just getting a drink. It's time for a sippy. Okay, so that, and you're just, basically this is your personal preference at this point, how many times you want to wrap it around. You can also put in 2 pieces, put it in half like this, just fold it in half, put it in like this, and then you've got 2 pieces so that you can go like, around and around and around and around. So it's entirely up to your preference how you're going to work with this. It's entirely up to your preference how you're going to work with any of it. But twill tape is really easy to use as I like twill tape as a ribbon because it's less likely to come apart than an actual ribbon, and it's actually, once you get it done, it's washable. And all you do is, you see that little piece that's sticking up? That's like, come on, there we go. Just lightly tap, 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 and it will just melt down into place. Once that's done, it doesn't come out again. So the piece that's going inside doesn't have to be finished like that. And you will find that this is how almost everybody finishes them. So what you would normally do is you would put a nice little line in there. Get your crappy lighter out that barely works. Oh, did I get it the first time? Nope. There we go. Touch, touch, touch. That's it. You are not just, all you're doing is, because these types of tapes are polyester, so all you have to do is just give an ever so slight melt. You can feel it. It's barely there as something that you feel, but it's crisp, it's clean, and it's not going to fray. And if you can, see that, what you're feeling is like, you have to be really trying to feel it. But if you're like for a while, you will end up with a lump that you will feel, but touch, touch, that's it. That's it. That's all you have to do, and you'll get a beautiful, clean finish. And like I said, you can feel it if you're looking for it, but most people don't even notice it. Lisa barely notices it. I notice it because it's my job to notice it. So the next thing you can do, you can cut a strip of this. You can take a piece of this and you can cut it, and then you can make your well, basically you make your own bias tape. Let's go this way. Let's go this way. So you would decide on what your thickness. You would make this as thick or as thin as you like. You would come through. You would cut it to length, to whatever length you want for this. And then you would. This is the part that people hate. I think this is the part that keeps people from doing it. You would fold it and iron it. Then you would fold it and fold it and fold it and iron it until you get a piece that's looking better than this. Till you get a piece that looks about like that. Only it's long enough to go all the way around and around and around. That is basically making your but what this is basically this, which is bias tape. You can buy this for about $2 in a fabric store. It comes with plenty of length. It's basically a piece of fabric that has already been folded into position for you. Right? It's already been folded, and it's ready to sew. We're going to go over the machine. I'm not going to go over the machine because I've already got some that's done. Okay, so basically, if you don't like making these ribbons, if you want cloth, but you don't like making them by hand, then you can go to any fabric stores. These usually come in a lot of colors. I exclusively use black because I just don't have the time to mess around with other colors and stuff. But all you would do, and this is the one I'm going to use today. You come over here. All you do is you just take it. It's ready to go. You just take it over to your machine. And you guys can't see it. It's black on black. But anyway, you just pick up a piece of bias tape. Honestly, if the little things like this can really make a huge difference. So you just pick up your bias tape and you just sew along the outside edge. Now, if it's this is a teeny tiny piece, so I've only sewed on one side because this was a really tiny one that I got. This is a bigger piece, so I would sew relatively close to the edge on this side and on this side to close it, so it's not going to pop open, and just sew it, and it's done. You don't have to iron. You don't have to screw around with anything. You just have to get it to the length that you want or need or prefer for your personal custom project. Where did I put my thing? I have a thread cutter with no lid. I have to go find that. I don't want to, what's going to happen is I'm going to stab myself later. If I stab myself later, I'll be sure to tell you guys. Okay. I have some that's already been sewn and finished. Because what I do is for my micro bags, okay, let me get that out of the way. I'm going to have to clean up later. Okay. So, I already do this for my micro bags. I already do this for my micro bags, so I'm good to go. Now, my two options were, I could have sewn it in as I went around. This one here is actually narrow enough. This is narrow enough that when you are doing a basting stitch, you can actually end up only getting one stitch in here, and then I just don't like that. That's why I add all of. There's my lid. I found my lid. Okay. And again, can I please repeat myself and remind you guys that 90% of today's video is explaining. Less than 10% of this is actually working. So I line up my. Now, if this was a little bit off for whatever any reason, say I was doing 11.5, right? Then I would just kind of wiggle and jiggle until I have an equal amount. It's hard to describe. You can also fold your project in half. Let's show you guys to do this way because not everybody has the schmancy rulers. Fold it in half. Give it a finger press. Just press it down really hard, really hard. And you can do it from the front or the back. Now when you open it, you have a slight crease right there that you can see. So I'm still going to go back to the ruler though. I'm not wearing my, oh no, there it is. I don't always trust. I personally don't always trust the creases, so I prefer the ruler, but everybody has their own thing. And this isn't as visible as I'd like it to be. If it's not as visible as you would like it to be, then fold it over and do it from the opposite side. You can also just put a small chalk, like you can come here and just, I'm very good at eyeballing it, but you can put a small chalk line there, or a pen line, or whatever. So you can put a small mark. You can do whatever you need to do to find that center piece there. So this being fairly thin and fairly light, I'm going to stick it in. I'm going to stick it straight in there. I'm going to make sure it's lined up with my 6-inch mark. I'm going to take that pin that I hopefully didn't lose. I think I put it back. And I'm going to stick that pin right through the center of this. This is how I like to pin things. I stick the pin straight in and then just carefully lift everything up, because if you're trying to push with the pin, you can actually, when it's tiny pieces like this, every now and again you can just push it out of place, right? Now, I need to decide how much I want to go around in a circle. I'm going to cut I should have cut it before I pinned it, but I don't care. Generally speaking, you're going to cut it before you pin it, but if you're not 100% sure what you want, I'm going to start with about a 24-inch piece. Now, I'm starting with a 24-inch piece because I have lots of this, I have lots of extra, and I know 24 inches is going to be more than enough. So we are going to ignore this giant mess that I've managed to create. We're going to come back to the machine. We're going to top stitch all the way around. Now, if your machine does fancy stitches, do a fancy stitch. If your machine does not do fancy stitches, just do a regular straight stitch, trying to stay relatively close to the edge. I like to start wherever the hole is that I've made. I like to start just above the hole so that I'm getting that first. That's just my preference. You don't have to do it that way, but personally, I find it to be a lot easier if wherever you've made your hole is approximately where you're going to start your sewing. So you can tuck in an extra pin or clip or do whatever you need to do. You can just eyeball it. That's fine. I'm going to start down here. Now today, you know what? Today, I am just going to do a straight stitch. This is just for me. And this is really fine. This is really narrow, and I've already kept you guys here long enough. Thanks again for hanging out with me. So I am going to go. I'm going to figure out, so again, I talked about the anatomy of your foot. So on this foot, this center piece is obviously center, this little gap in the center obviously lines up right with my needle. So I'm going to put that little gap about 1/8 of an inch in. And this is exactly how it's done. I mean, it's really easy to go, oh, they're just, now you can do a full 1/4 inch. You can do a full 1/4 inch all the way around. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just keep in mind that if you're going to do a full 1/4 inch, wherever you're putting that needle, this piece here has to be tucked in enough that the needle's going to catch it. That's the only rule. You can do fancy stitches. You can do no stitch. Well, you have to stitch it. Actually, you don't have to stitch it. You can do what's called a ladder stitch and just seal up this hole without anybody seeing a thing. Anyway, we're going to get started. Just bear with me. Okay, thanks for that, guys. I just had to go change my battery because my battery was about to die. I have been talking for a very long time today. Okay, so today I'm just doing a straight stitch. I'm going to line it up right here. I'm going to double check. Yep, that's going to hit there. Now, Because I'm doing a single straight stitch, I want this to be relatively close together. I want it to catch everything. So I've set my stitch length for 2 millimeters. I can go a little smaller, but actually I'm gonna go a little smaller. I'm gonna go to 1.8 because I do have to go through something that's very, very narrow and I want to catch it with a lot of stitches. So I'm lining this up. There we go. So I just checked my foot to see where things are and aren't, and I decide where to line my foot up. It sounds complicated, but again, it's just something that once you explain it, once you decide how you're lining up, generally speaking, you're going to use these lines over here, but because what I'm doing is so narrow, and I've got a 1/8 thing here, a 1/8 mark here, so I'm lining it up with that. I'm lining it up with that, running it up to there, so my stitch should be 1/8 of an inch in from the seam. So we're going to take our time. We're going to go forward. Now I did iron it right quick. As you get forward, now this is the thing. So I'm going to hold that down. Pins there. I'm making sure that everything stayed nice and straight. Take the pin out carefully. Going to stitch across this now, because if this was a wider piece of fabric, if this was this guy, I would just stitch over it and keep going. If this was this thick, this is super, super narrow. I don't have a guarantee that the stitches even hit it properly, so I'm going to back stitch and put 3 little back stitches over it. That's called a reinforcing stitch. Yeah, if you're trying to start a stitch, it's a starting stitch. It's a back stitch, it's a whatever, but yeah, if you've got something that you think might not be held down as tightly as you want it to be held down, then going back and over it just reinforces the stitch, makes it less likely to have a problem, and it's very rarely visible in the finished product. Okay, so I am watching up here, I am watching my line down here, I am taking my time, and I think Lisa's going to speed this section up. Okay guys, time for the big reveal. I have a cloth that looks like this. I have a 3-card spread that looks like this. I have preferences to be able to sometimes put extra cards out. So I got a cloth that is perfectly sized for what I prefer to do. We're good to go there. I double checked my sizes as I went along, figured out what size was going to be my perfect fit, and now it's time to put it away. So I'm just going to, actually, you know what? Now you can do this one of 2 ways. I would always prefer the pretty side to be protected. So I'm going to put the deck here. Actually, I'm going to put the deck about here. You can do it anywhere that you want. You just have to remember that this side has to be open when you're done. So I'm going to start there and there. I didn't put it in the. I didn't put it back in the box, but that's okay. Obviously, if you're doing it in a box, not in a box. So, okay. So I didn't like that. I didn't break anything. I didn't. Doop. Just move it down a little bit. Move it down a little bit. I'll move it down a little bit more. Okay. I'm just gonna kind of fold that. You ever fold a present? I like to fold the end a little bit like a present, and then roll it. And you just keep an eye on it. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfectly wrapped. I'm going to go around. I gave myself lots of extra string. Now for this, I gave myself lots of extra string, and I'm just going to leave it. I think I like the length. So when you are doing this, if you cut a fabric diagonally, it doesn't fray. You can test it on any fabric. So when this is done, now that I know I'm sticking with this length, I'm just going to come back and give it a little trim at an angle to keep it from fraying, to minimize any chance that it's going to fray. And then I'm going to put that through there, put that through there, and it's done. And again, I could have put 2 in here and then went over and under and then tied a little bow. I can use a ribbon. I could have taken, how you finish this is really irrelevant. I find that the second biggest, the first challenge is always customizing your size. That's always the biggest challenge. Some people just put them like this and then just put them away. Some people don't even wrap them. I mean, they don't even tie them off. That's totally fine. But if you're going to tie them off, there's so many different ways that you can do it, and you don't have to put it, like if you have a couple of bucks to put into buying some bias tape, then you don't have to even make this part. So yeah, so this is done. This is done. This is ready to go. Thanks for hanging out with me. I now have a lovely, lovely little gift to give my wife this afternoon when she gets home. Apparently I have 2 of them because I think I am going to come back and do another one. Like I said, prep. I did a whole video about prep, so I'll prep some stuff up, but I'll do the whole process from beginning to end in a silent video, so you can see for yourselves what kind of time frame to expect when you're doing a custom project. But I think that would be a helpful add-on to this overly long-winded explain everything to death. But yeah, let's see what else I can put on this. Let's go. Doot. Let's see. I think I almost had it earlier. Yeah, I can do that. And then if I go 1, they're slightly off. Nope, I can't do a Celtic cross. Okay. But I can do the other one. I'm really happy with that. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching the hands do all the work. I hope this was helpful. I really do. I mean, I know that this was a long one, but I really hope that it was helpful because obviously that's the goal here, is to be helpful and help people gain some ideas, gain some perspective, help people to better their own things. But this was actually a lot of fun. I did enjoy making it. Maybe I will do some of these for the shop. That was actually really. This is actually super easy to do. It really is. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Don't forget the best way to help the channel is to just give that thumbs up. So I hope you did enjoy yourself enough to give me that today. And in the meantime, like, subscribe, click the bell, do the notifications if you like what you're seeing, so that you can get notified when there's more of it coming up. And in the meantime, you guys have a great, great day. I hope you had fun watching this. I know I had fun making it. So I had fun chatting with you guys. So you guys have a great day. Take care, and I will see you next time.